5 seconds to go. Start. I am told there were certain criticisms. Stop. We were used to criticism of our foreign policy because any independent path is so much more difficult to pursue and so much more difficult for people to understand than if we follow some beaten path. Stop. There are those who say that non alignment has not served our purpose or it has not been a success. Stop. Para. Many of those who have been against non alignment all these years and who criticized my father and myself for trying to pursue this path are today not attacking non alignment as such, but are saying that we are not truly non aligned. Stop. The great attack today, the greatest weapon which is used against foreign policy, is to say that in effect we are following the Soviet line. Stop. Perhaps they think they are saying so will frighten us into trying to give up our friendship with the Soviet people. Stop. Perhaps they merely think that they will be able to blow up the image of independence which we have amongst our own people and amongst the world. Stop. Let us very clear that, regardless of what our big newspapers say here, the image of India is very clear outside. Stop. It is not an image of a country which follows any group or country, semicolon. It is an image of a country standing or trying to stand squarely on its own feet. Stop. It does not mean that they always think we are right. Stop. Many of the countries think that we make mistakes. Stop. And on many occasions we go wrong. Stop. On all the occasions when we seem to support the Western countries, it is the Eastern group which says we have gone wrong or we have not been strong enough. Stop. On those occasions when we have supported the Soviet people, or more likely the African Asian countries, the Western world thinks we have gone wrong. Stop. On one occasion, the American ambassador complained to me that we had supported the Soviet Union on more occasions in the United Nations than we had supported other countries. Stop. I said, quote start, let us look at each occasion. Stop. Quote close. I did not have details with me there and then, because this remark was made at a party. Stop. But I said, quote start, if you look at the occasion on which we have seemed to side with the Soviet Union, what do you find? Sign of interrogation. Were they not issues in which India and the developing countries were vitally interested? Sign of interrogation. And if this was so, would it not be more true to say that the Soviet Union had supported the stand taken by the developing countries, by the African and Asian countries, and note that we had gone out of our way to support the Soviet Union. Quote close. Support. Afterwards, I put this question to the Ministry of External Affairs, and actually, when we counted up, we found that it was not even true to say that we had voted with the Soviet Union on more occasions than we had voted with the other countries of the Western Bloc. Stop. Para. The main purpose of the United Nations is to build up a world without war, a world based on the cooperation of nations and peoples. Stop. It is merely a world where war is kept in check by a balancing of armed forces. Stop. It is much deeper than that. Stop. It is a world from which the major causes of war have been removed and social structures built up which further peaceful cooperation within a nation as well as between nations. Stop. In the preamble of the Constitution of the UNESCO, it is stated that war begins in the minds of men. Stop. That is essentially true, comma, and ultimately it is necessary to bring about the change in our minds and to remove fears and apprehensions, comma, hatreds and suspicion. Stop. Disarmament is a part of this process, comma, for it will create an atmosphere of cooperation. Stop. But it is only a step towards our objective, comma, a part of the larger efforts to rid the world of war and the causes of war. Stop. In the present context, comma, however, comma, disarmament assumes a very special importance for us, comma, overriding all other issues. Stop. For many years past, comma, there have been talks on disarmament and some progress has undoubtedly been made insofar as the plans and proposals are concerned. Stop. Still, we find that the race of armaments continues, comma, as also the efforts to invent even more powerful engines of destruction. Stop. If even a small part of these efforts was directed to the search for peace, comma, probably the problem of disarmament would have been solved by this time. Stop. Para. Apart from the moral imperative of peace, comma, every practical consideration leads us to that conclusion. Stop. For, comma, as everyone knows, comma, the choice today in this nuclear age is one of utter annihilation and destruction of civilization or of some way to have peaceful coexistence between nations. Stop. There is no middle way. Stop. If war is an abomination and an ultimate crime which has to be avoided, comma, we must fashion our minds and policies accordingly. Stop. There may be risks, comma, but the greatest risks is to allow the present dangerous drift to continue. Stop. In order to achieve peace, we have to develop a climate of peace and tolerance and to avoid speech and action which tend to increase fear and hatred, and at the present it may not be possible to reach full disarmament in one step, comma, though every step would be conditioned to that end. Stop. Para. We live in an age of great revolutionary changes brought about by the advance of science and technology. Stop. Therein lies the hope for the world and also the danger of sudden death. Stop. Because of these advances, comma, the time we have for controlling the forces of destruction is strictly limited. Stop. If within the next 3 or 4 years, comma, effective disarmament is not agreed to and implemented, comma, then all the goodwill in the world will not be able to stop the drift to certain disaster. Stop. In the context of things as they are today, comma, the great nations, comma, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, comma, hold the key to war and peace. Stop. There is a great responsibility. Stop. But every country, comma, big or small, comma, is concerned in this matter of peace and war, comma, and, comma, therefore, comma, every country must shoulder its responsibility and work to this end. Stop. In order to deal with these bit issues effectively, comma, we have to take big and impersonal views. Stop. It is only the United Nations as a whole that can ultimately solve these problems. Stop. Therefore, comma, while all efforts towards disarmament must be welcomed, comma, the United Nations should be closely associated with such efforts. Stop.